it's a good turnout. So thanks for joining us. I think I don't know if anyone doesn't know who I am, but my name's Cully. I'm an artist based in Dundee. I'm a director of a charity called Morphe Arts, and one of the people behind Nomas projects, along with Owen Daly, who is on a course in London at the moment, so he's not able to join us this evening. So if you're used to Owen's philosophical thoughts at the end, unfortunately, we're going to miss out on them this evening. And Owen's also an artist, and he teaches at Dundee College. For those that don't know, Nomas is situated on Ward Road in Dundee, between the Balcony Bar and the Church nightclub. It consists of 5 windows, and we use them to display artworks. For Owen and I, really our kind of vision and aim is really just to kind of contribute to the arts community in Dundee, but also to be learning ideas from other people and being part of a kind of relevant conversation in the arts in Dundee and beyond as well. And one of the things that's happened with Zoom is that it's allowed us just to have a bigger reach, which has been great. I'm going to introduce you to Miriam, who's our artist working with us at the moment. She's a ceramicist. She's based in Dundee as well. She's got a studio in Wasps, and she's a committee member of Generator Projects. And it's been a real pleasure to get to know Mim over this last year. When we selected her, she was the prize, the Nomas graduate prize winner from Duncan of Johnston College of Art and Design, and we didn't know her at all, so we didn't know who we were selecting. It was just purely based on the quality of her work. But the prize consists in part of Nomas providing 2 mentoring sessions with Mim in this case, and as we've got to know each other, the sessions have merged naturally into more times of meeting and a building of friendship too. That's my experience anyway, Mim. I'm not sure if it is for you. But for me, it's been great just to get to know Mim over this year. And also just find out, just a lot of the way that she thinks about processing her artwork as well. She's a very busy person. I just mentioned a couple of things that she does there, but she's actually very, very busy. But one of the things that stood out to Owen and I when we were selecting Mim's work was it was bold and confident and playful. But it also raised questions that we resonated with in terms of how and why art is displayed and what gives it value. So Mim had written her handwritten statement, which we liked as well. And in it she wrote, I don't know if you remember this, Mim. Hold on, I'm just going to let Source in. She said, I made you a pot, you put it on a plinth, the plinth made it into a vessel. And then she said later on, I like to question our ideas of value. I like poking fun, and I like that as well, just poking fun at rules and systems of display. And so we felt a strong inclination that Mim would enjoy the opportunity to display her work in the context of Nomas and 5 office windows. And this is a bit just about what she said about this exhibition that she's showing now. So it's through the consideration of mechanical invention, unseen labour, and human development that her exhibition, Something for Nothing, explores the notion that process of invention is a byproduct of the perpetual motion machine of human thought and creativity. So I'm going to hand over to Mim now to let her elaborate on what all that means and those values and how that impacts the art that she makes. So as we normally do, there'll be time, or any time during the talk, you can put questions in the chat, and Mim and I will see that, and Mim might want to just interact with them as they come up, or we'll just respond to them at the end. So just if you can put yourself on mute, just so that there's no kind of interruptions from sound that way. And I'll hand over to you, Mim. Let's give her a warm welcome.
Okay.
Thanks, Mim.
Hi. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see so many people here. I'm Mim. I'm a ceramicist in Dundee. I want to say I'm an artist, but I feel like I'm in that space of just kind of graduating and you're kind of finding your footing, and saying you're an artist too soon feels like maybe a big no-no. Yeah, so I'm going to share some pictures of some work with you guys and go through them as we go. But I thought maybe it'd be nicer to start with older work and then kind of build up to then the thoughts I was having for the Nomas show, since that might maybe draw a better line and more consistent thought process. Because yeah, it's going to be a lot of like throwing kind of thoughts out, and you guys can either pick them up or leave them down. It's up to you. Don't know if anything will be that interesting for you guys. Yay, Something for Nothing. So yeah, my show actually takes the name Something for Nothing from, oh God, this is not my forte, guys. From a Rube Goldberg video that he made in 1940. I don't know if anyone knows who Rube Goldberg is, but he's a cartoonist, and I can talk about him a little bit later towards the end of my presentation. Artist talk. Don't know, I'm a bit nervous. If you guys can't tell, talking to yourself in your living room is a bit weird, which we all should be used to by this point. Anyway, so I'm going to start with some work that I made in the third year of art school, which was actually the piece of work that I made right before lockdown. And when the lockdown was introduced, all this work was still situated up in 601 in the art school. And I actually had no idea how or when I was going to be able to get it out, but eventually managed to get it out. So I called this kind of project Please Do Not Bathe in the Wet Thing. And it was very much inspired by, we went on a big trip to the Venice Biennale in 2019. For the 29 plastered all over with signs saying, please do not touch the fountain, please don't language that we have around display, and how we kind of draw a blind eye between what the work is supposed to be and the signage around it, or the kind of the space in a white gallery that you're kind of aware of being there, but you're not supposed to be aware of. But it kind of negates the whole point of it being situated in this space, relegated from like experience. And it's just this liminal space where you can really just appreciate the work, but you see fire escapes and fire exits and signage and smoke alarms, obviously good things to have in buildings, but situate them very much in reality and not in this like perfect idea of a space. So yeah, this was the start of that kind of thinking. And obviously you can't really tell in photographs, but a lot of this was moving around. So this was the first time I started using fans, which is something I use in my work quite a lot, as I like to talk about mechanics. And I always think that they're quite personable. Like they're the most characterful of like everyday kind of machines and objects. So it's also something I was thinking about at this time as well, of like bringing the process into the display. So obviously, like I said, I'm a ceramicist, so I'm very used to working with mud, and there's certain materials that you also use in a ceramics workshop, such as like big planks of wood and bats and buckets of water, and kind of drawing that line between like what is the objects that are worth display and what part of the artist process is it that we should be focusing on and appreciating. So the big blue kind of Smurf penis, which wasn't intentionally to be a Smurf kind of penis, but ended up being so, was on a big turntable that as it would spin, the whole thing would move around, but it just had this like really like nice natural curvature to it. And then the fan was blowing like a piece of plastic on the floor and making like a really kind of loud, gentle noise like through the whole space. And then in this cardboard box as well, it was just, I don't actually know how this ended up in my studio, but it was just a big box filled with rice. I think someone got their phone wet one day and was trying to solve it by putting it in rice, but that's obviously one of these things as well. Like when you see like a big bag of lentils or legumes or something, and you want to put your hands in, but obviously if you've got signs everywhere saying like, don't touch it, it's just this like innate, like human kind of want. Anyway, that's kind of the first time I was thinking about these kind of things. And then, so these two images are from two different exhibitions. The one on the left, it was from a generator takeover that we did as fourth year students at the art school, where we all got to go in and kind of put up our own exhibition. So I was calling this one like Trickle Down. And essentially I had a big piece of unfired pottery on the ground that, like, as I, like the two buckets, as I poured water into the top one, it would trickle down and then like slowly dissolve the like piece of pottery on the bottom and would like fall back into mud, which then I can like recycle and reuse in my studio. And and these shopping bags, these little blue shopping bags that are all over, had like screen printed people on them, which I actually didn't include a detail of that. And then all around the floor as well, I included the sort of tools that we use in the pottery studio. And there's another banding wheel there with a pot on it that I made, which is in the flat somewhere. And then the photograph on the left is from an exhibition that I held for myself in my flat during lockdown. So I was isolating by myself for a really big chunk of the pandemic due to pre-existing conditions and whatnot. So this was called I Own Shoes But Can't Go Outside. So I made all of these different drawings. My friend Laura was volunteering at a fruit and veg shop, packing vegetable boxes for people delivering during COVID, which I now work there. It's basically my full-time job now. So I liked how it says auction on the side, but you're like crammed inside. And then in the mirror, there's a little sign that says BYOB, but obviously no one BYOB'd to that event, but it would have been nice if people brought me bees. So yeah, and then this takes us to the kind of degree show time, which is when Cully saw my work. It's totally mental, to be honest. I think if I was to go back now, it wouldn't be so crazy. But so as you guys have seen, there's been pottery and ceramics throughout my work. But when we were back at university after the lockdown, it was really difficult to try and maintain this big theatrical way of working that I quite enjoyed. Just because it felt all kind of pointless and meaningless to be working on these big projects. So I kind of started being more aware of what technical aspects I needed to have to consider myself a good enough potter to kind of make a living after I left art school. And that was the way that I used that time. Wasn't so much for exploring bigger theatrical ideas, because at the end of the day no one was really going to come and see it anyway, so I was really using it to hone certain crafts. So there's a lot of pottery, and also I don't know if it's really okay to say, but the whole point of this kind of work as well was just to make furniture for my studio for when I left, because I didn't want to have to buy shelving units and clay and tables. So I kind of manipulated the wood workshop a little bit to make me all the things I needed, so that when I left uni I could just kind of set up my studio straight away, and I didn't have to put any of my own money in other than buying my kiln or my pottery wheel. Everything was already kind of there, which I think is quite a nice way of maybe rinsing the uni a little bit, especially after the kind of situation that we were graduating into. So I can talk a bit more about everything. So in the background, there's a big fan, or a big flag, and there's a fan sitting on this 3-tiered podium that's just down here. And the fan was blowing the flag and it was moving in the wind. And there's all these kind of little wine glasses dotted around. And that was kind of an homage to the people that I'd met studying in Dundee and going to art shows with, and getting kind of plastered with them and talking about art, and appreciating that side of the art world as well. So you've got the process part, the display, and then the interactions that you have at galleries during the display, which often, we all kind of consider to be the most important part of being in the arts. But I do anyway. It's the people that you meet and the friendships you make and the things you talk about. So again, bringing the fan in was talking about this mechanical idea. And the flags were from this book I was reading about boundary lines of different buildings and architecture, and how we have certain signifiers, walking into a gallery, that say that you're entering a different space. You've got the slightly lighter grey floor and the absence of windows, and the cracked walls that have been covered over in years and years of white paint. So I started I like this idea of using flags as the earliest form of boundary marker of armies coming in and invading, and you could tell exactly what sort of area you're in based on the flags that are flying in that country or wherever you are. So another part of this degree show work was I made this big mechanical, it wasn't really mechanical actually, it was just kind of it was going to be a bigger production, but it kind of just ended up becoming this, which I still really enjoyed, where it was just kind of ridiculous kind of child's toy. So it was a wooden structure that had a steel plate coming off with a big rubber latex hand. Basically, you could spin the hand round and it would smack on the big clump of clay on the floor and just make like a really kind of, I don't know, sexually suggestive kind of smacking that I just thought was a bit stupid and funny. And it was kind of about this, like, getting your hands dirty, and everything's kind of also the pointless fun of it, I suppose, of making and enjoying yourself. Also a lot of my work is like very like modular. So I've been saying the whole time, like I always enjoy the making of things more than just like leaving stuff. So when I'm installing something, I'll just constantly be like shifting things around, and quite often enjoy the way that things look before I finish them. Whenever they're finished, or I say they're finished, it's like I never enjoy it so much. Also, if we go back to the piece that I made for the generator show with the water coming down, when I was invigilating that show, someone came out and was like, I think something's fallen over in there. I don't think that's right. And I was just like, oh no, it's fine. It's okay. It's meant to be like that. It's just, this like kind of horrible space where nothing's really happening, but maybe that's like what's quite nice. So after I graduated last year, I'm assuming everyone's gone to university here, which is, I probably shouldn't assume that. When you leave and you get the graduation blues a little bit and you're just kind of like, what am I doing? That was quite shitty, but then it also ended up being quite a nice time where I could kind of just make myself laugh in the studio a little bit more. And I wasn't feeling like I was having to constantly justify. But then when I was in my studio, which with some plants, and just kind of having more fun with like what I was doing, and I was just kind of making myself laugh, because obviously I was working in isolation then as well, which wasn't what you're used to when you're in the big bustling studio at art school. When you get your own studio and you're by yourself, you're just kind of like entertaining yourself a little bit more and occupying your own kind of sadistic like fantasies a bit more, and like doing whatever you want. So I started making these little people pods, which at the time I didn't really think anything of, more than they made me laugh, and I thought they were quite cute. Then discovered that anthropomorphic pottery is everywhere throughout history, and I got really excited about it. And I got really excited about this kind of cyclical nature of pottery and making things, and how I could be making just a little clay man now, but people were making little clay men thousands and thousands of years ago. And we're kind of just holding hands through this one craft throughout like all this time and distance and country space and border lines and everything. And just like back to this like nice realization that we can all just, like, as the kids say these days, go outside and touch grass. When you're feeling like you've been spending too much time on the internet, you can go outside and touch grass, which is like a phrase I quite like. So I'm going on a bit of a ramble now. The whole thing's a ramble. Do people have questions right now, or should I just keep going? You're all muted. It doesn't matter. I'll keep going.
Yeah, keep going. It's good. This kind of idea of non-linear histories and getting excited about what clay kind of does and means as a wider notion of humanity and what it's done to impact all of us got me really excited, but I didn't really know actually what it had done. I was just like, this seems important, but I don't know why yet. So then I started doing some reading about it, and I got quite excited about certain ideas. So I was reading an essay by George M. Foster, which is called, I can't remember now. It was about artifacts and ideas, and how archaeology and uncovering artifacts, the small everyday, can tell you more about the society than reading about it, or just finding these little things that you would use every day from thousands and thousands of years ago, and how that impacted the society of that time. So I was reading about these bowls that are on the right here, and these are called bevel-rimmed bowls. And basically, this was the first kind of
example of mass production in human history. And these are the equivalent of like a Starbucks cup, essentially, like they're disposable pottery. But it's also the first example of traded currencies and having like a base value of something. So this is when I get like, I'm going to have to go on like all these different like little routines, because I don't really understand this myself yet, because it's quite a new kind of thought train I've been on. So what I find interesting about these is that this was the start of civilization. The fact that people were going out into the, like going farming, they were getting paid in grain in these bowls. They're all the same size. They're standardized weighting systems. And that is how they would get paid for their days out in the field, was that they would get this bowl of food. But that standardized payment also allowed them to farm more. Farming more allowed them to store more, and then led to sedentary civilizations in like early Mesopotamia, particularly like Sumeria, which is like the southern part. So that led to farming, agriculture, urban planning, cities, city dwellings, plumbing. Pottery was like at the forefront of like all of these big, really big ideas and big human developments. Obviously it shifted a lot as well. And it wasn't just like pottery is this thing, because that was really all that they kind of could use at that time. But I just like this idea that all these massive human developments came from people just getting kind of down and dirty and getting their fingers a bit muddy and bringing stuff over. So yeah, I made this wheat field at Nomas, but it's more of a grass field than a wheat field, because it was the wrong time of year, to be honest, to get wheat. I asked my farmer friend Ewan how to get some wheat, and he said August last year. And I was like, okay, don't need that cheek from you. So I got some grasses from the skate park over in Tayport, which actually I think turned out better, because wheat came from grasses. Clay helped domesticate wheat. It's like a nice little cyclical system, and I can just say it's wheat and you guys can believe me, so shut up. So yeah, this is like a big picture of the wheat field. So this span over the 3 windows that are all connected in the middle. Yeah, that was me talking about that for a little bit. Sorry, I feel like I've really been going on for so long. It's like quite unbearable.
It's not, Mem, it's great.
The other 2 windows at the end, this is like another section, but I'll try and loop it back together. These are taken, so I've got, like Cully was saying at the start, I'm quite a busy person. I have like a ridiculous amount of jobs, because I had that panic right after leaving uni where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be broke and need to eat beans all the time, which actually wouldn't be so bad. I like beans, but if it was constant, it might be a bit of a nightmare. So I work in the cinema, the DCA, and I work at Fraser's Fruit and Veg, selling vegetables and fruit, as the name would say. And I work at the uni as well in the ceramics department. So all of those 3 jobs kind of combine in this piece of work where I'm interested in agriculture. These photographs I took from a Saturday afternoon screening of the Met Opera. So every second Saturday, the DCA screens in the Met Opera from New York. And during the intermission, I'll go in and make sure that everyone's okay and that they can find their way out if they need to get to the toilet. But it's also like my favorite part of my shift, because when they're streaming the Met Opera, the cameras are behind the curtain. So if you were actually in the Met Opera theatre, you wouldn't see all the people moving the stage props and stage sets around. But when they're streaming it, we can see it all. So we get to see these like massive pieces of scenery come in, and the cranes move up and the floors move side to side and back to front. And I love it. Like this, seeing the little glimpse into this little section of the world that you can't see even if you're right next to it is all these operas people wrote hundreds of years ago, a dead artist from hundreds of years ago. And it goes back to that kind of, the pottery, like the earliest form of written history is on clay tablets. And clay kind of led to written language through cuneiform. It led to accounting. The first name recorded in human history is this name Kashim, who was an accountant in ancient Mesopotamia. And he was just writing down, I need like 30 bundles of barley in 4 months, signed Kushim. And it's just this idea that these ideas are transplanted throughout history and people carry them on, which goes to the name of the show, Something for Nothing. Sorry, I told you guys it was going to be like a total rambly one. I'm so sorry. Something for Nothing. Rube Goldberg was a cartoonist, and if you guys haven't seen or know from his name, you'll have seen his machines that people have made. So have you ever seen like the cause and effect machines that people kind of would flick a marble and it would roll down and hit a domino, and the domino would hit and flip a spoon over and that would do something. And there are all these big cause and effect machines that would end up doing like a small insignificant kind of task at the end. Like Cracticus Potts makes them in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, if people have seen Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. But anyway, so Something for Nothing was a video that he made in 1940, where he's talking about the impossibility, in fact, of a perpetual motion machine, which would be a machine that would generate and harness its own power to continue going forever. And it would basically solve like all of humanity's needs and issues, and we wouldn't have to have rising fuel prices anymore or any kind of issue pertaining to energy development. But basically it's impossible, and people have tried it multiple times, always to fail. There's like lots of different examples of ones that like you would think would work but can't. Like a magnet pulls a metal ball up a hill and then it drops it down again on a slope and then it'll pull it down, but that stops like on the midway ramp. Anyway, so Something for Nothing, the impossibility of perpetual motion. But what I'm kind of wanting to say and discuss, I suppose, is that we are like our own perpetual motion machines. Humanity is its own perpetual motion machine through sharing ideas and art and thought and literature and history and war and everything. Like we're perpetually in motion until, I mean, if climate change goes crazy or we get another asteroid or something, like we are in perpetual motion. But even then we'll be leaving things behind. We'll be leaving clay tablets behind and clay dolls behind that hands have touched thousands of years ago and that our hands can touch now, and we can share things throughout time and space and history. I don't know. That's kind of what all of this has gone towards. The ramble chat got us here. I'm so sorry if I've spoken really fast. I'm a bit nervous.
Not at all.
I'm like talking to myself. Also, if I spoke too slow, no, I don't think I did. But
no,
if I did,
it was just perfect, man. And not rambling at all. It totally made sense. The coherence of that and where you came from to where you ended up. And that's the thing. I mean, I know I've known a wee bit, but the way you've described it, I think it's been really helpful.
It's difficult, I think, when you're obviously, when you're talking to like an empty room with people, not like you can't hear people kind of saying like, yeah, okay, what do you think of this? You know, it's not like it's a very one-sided kind of situation. If I'm just sitting here talking, I would prefer, maybe more of like a discussion moment, you know, and like to sit and talk to someone. But that's okay.
It's a small enough group if anyone wants to. I mean, obviously, people can put questions in the chat. I'll just have a look to see if there's anything in there yet. But so just a comment here from Charlotte saying it's been great to see your journey. Results of process, concepts, and humour is brilliant. Thanks for sharing. Gorgeous talk, Mim. It's interesting because I was calling you Miriam, wasn't it? That's your official name. It took me ages to realise that I could call you Mim, not sound like your parents. No, even your parents don't call you Miriam, do they?
No one really. I mean, people do it as a wee joke sometimes. I don't really mind. I mean, it's quite a long name if you're feeling lazy or something. I don't know. So if people have questions, I think that might be. Also, I know when you just sat there and been bombarded with information, it's a bit intense to just think of a question. But if there's something that you would like to talk about, then let me know.
See, when you started researching, the history and so on of that, has it made you want to investigate that further, or is there enough in what you've learned?
Oh no, are you kidding? I can't even talk about it enough. Like, I can't talk about it coherently, which means there's a lot more for me to learn about it, I think. No, that's like a PhD situation of research. I feel like I just was learning about the irrigation systems and like plumbing of Mesopotamia, and I was like, I could learn about that for a lifetime. Like plumbing, never thought I would be so interested in it, but yeah.
The question here from Rosie, saying, thanks, Mim, really great to hear about your work. Out of interest, what did the change represent in the final 2 windows of the exhibition?
Yeah, so that's nice to be.
I won't. Kelly
was like, is that meant to be there? And I was like, yeah. So the chains are, it's really literal representation, actually. It's quite embarrassing, but more just trying to represent this idea of interlocking and interlinking throughout kind of time. Like a chain is the best example of, human history, right? Like we wouldn't have been here if one of those links stopped. So we're just like this ever-growing kind of link. I did originally want to make like a greenware is unfired ceramic. That's what we call it. So I wanted to make a greenware, like an unfired ceramic chain that was going to be interlocked. But like Collie said, I'm got too many jobs and not enough time in my studio, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it, Rosie. It was yeah, like I said, very literal, but
yeah, thanks for that. Corey and saying, I hope I'm saying that name right. I love your pragmatism with your degree show by getting items for your studio. I didn't realise that's like right. I can use all the resources and the materials in the woodwork shop.
Yeah, like that was.
Which is interesting because there's so often there's waste. One of the things that you didn't mention, but when you were talking about putting the fans in the window, and we were talking about electricity and just concern for. I think you're the first person that's ever said, like asked about, maybe not using electricity because of, just using resources that don't need to be, and because often after a degree show, there's just tons of stuff in the skip,
Yeah.
So to do that, I thought that was really good.
The plan for the windows that me and Collie discussed was that the field would be in all of them, and that there would be little fans blowing. So it was like manufactured wind inside the windows. I was a bit concerned about. Well, the concern was twofold: of having battery powered or using electricity for basically 24/7 for a month, right? And then also there's people working on the other side of those windows. And if they have to listen to fans all day, like I would hate the person that made me like just sit and listen to like droning sounds. So that was kind of the urge away from that. And then also, so part of the reason also I got into ceramics was like the only degree show I actually saw at art school was the one that was when I was in second year. So I went straight into second year, and then that was the only degree show that took place when I was studying. I just got so upset seeing people throwing paintings and big sculptures in the skips. And I was like, I'm not going to waste anything for my degree show. It made me really sad. So that's why I started making ceramics, because I thought that at least that would be, you can use a soap dish, or you can always use a soap dish or a toothbrush holder or something, doesn't have to go in the skip.
Here's a good question from Uli. So she says, you say quite rightly that we're in perpetual motion or we're our own perpetual motion machines. Where does stillness or quiet fit into the picture? Or is there a place of stillness, the opposite of motion in your practice?
So I would say the perpetual motion that I'm envisioning isn't this constant beratement of like screaming attention. I would consider it more to be like a longer motion, like a wave or something that's happening throughout kind of time. So the motion is in itself quite still, it's like, it's more about appreciating where you are in this like long line of motion. Like a Mexican wave, right? You're doing like a Mexican wave at a stadium and you're just like one part of that that's going up. Does that make sense? So like there's that is kind of, it is stillness through the movement, I suppose.
Thank you. Yeah, helpful. Thanks.
Thanks, Ellie. Just a comment from Ben. I don't, this just made me laugh. Are you familiar with George Wiley's slap and tickle machine, 1985?
No, I'm not.
Her hand slapping clay reminded me of this.
I'll write it down and I'll look it up once we're done.
Incidentally, the stage technicians at the Met Opera get paid well because they are in IATSE trade union. Thanks for that, Ben.
Good for them. That's like so good to know. That's a lot of work they have to do, you know?
Yeah.
That's good.
I was just about to go into a political thing there on trade unions with the train strikes, but the only thing I heard about it was that someone was arguing, you know, and you might agree with this, Ben, for the importance of trade unions. And anyway, sorry, it's getting a wee bit political maybe. But that's good to know, Ben. Question from Marta. Oh, it's not really a question, but thank you. That was great. Very interesting. Really into the materials past of objects. Martin's been one of our Nomas artists as well in the past. So I was totally taking notes when you were talking about the history of the clay, etc. If you have not come across them, Object-Orientated Ontology by Graham Harman.
I've read that before. I've not read that one by James Bennett, though.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're seeing that in the chat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Martin.
Yeah. Graham Harman's really good. And Jamie, who's another person that's in watching, put me on to him when I was in second or third year. And really enjoyed reading his writing. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking about the cause and effects, when something rolls down and it knocks into something, I can't remember. It's a double-barreled name, two artists, I think German. Does anyone remember? Who is it, Uli?
Fischlin Weiss.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Well, I must have just spelt it wrong because I tried to Google it and
I put it in the chat.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm sure you would have seen that, Mim.
Might be one of those things where it's like you can hear a song and you love the song, but you have no idea what it's called. So you might see the art and be like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that before."
Yeah. That phrase that you said with the young people going out to touch grass, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I just heard recently of like it's kind of like a TikTok trend of like people that spend too much time on their phones and when you get too deep into the internet and you come across something quite horrible and it's like, I have to go out and touch some grass.
Yeah. Are you sure you heard it right? I thought it would have been gone outside to smoke some grass, but
no, you need some grounding. You need to be grounding on the floor.
I was aware, Mim, obviously one of the reasons that we kind of offer a graduate show is so that there is, something to aim for people who are graduated, and you being in that place. Like what has, because obviously you've had this show. Have you had anything else? I know you've been really busy, but have you had any other?
Not really. Nothing that's like kind of me doing me. So like working at Generator, you're kind of working there as a big group to facilitate other people's ideas coming to kind of fruition. But I don't think I've been that comfortable kind of putting myself out into applying for things yet to get shows or to think about stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
Do you think that's time? Do you think that's time or confidence or?
I think it's probably a mix of both. I think I always think if I just had the time, I would do tons of stuff. But I know if I had the time, I'd just sit around and watch TV. But I'm not sure. But I think being around, like staying in Dundee and meeting everyone that's at Generator and meeting my friends that are in Dundee and seeing the way that they kind of all apply and keep putting themselves out there for stuff has been quite inspiring. And I think that's really important. If anyone is like on here and about to graduate, I'd say building a community is like number one most important thing you should do when you leave. I don't think there's a rush to be exhibiting. Like I'll be learning and making stuff my whole life. I'll get around to exhibiting more, but right now you need to make sure you've got people around you, that are good. good folk.
Yeah. This is a good question from Rosie. I was just thinking this myself, in the terms of, in the sense of when you've made exhibitions, say your degree show, which had the kind of pragmatic thing, then you talked about making the people pots, and Rosie's asking about this as well. Partly, what are you working on now? Are you still working on the people pots, for instance? Is that kind of an ongoing thing? And do you make ceramics to sell?
Yeah, so this is something that me and Colleen have spoken about as well, of kind of being as a ceramic artist, you kind of also operate on like a design, like you're a designer, and then you feel a bit funny calling yourself an artist. But I mean, yeah, I try and get to my studio as much as I can just to kind of dawdle around and make things that surprise me and have fun. I do sell stuff, but I need to kind of streamline the process a little bit, because at the minute it would be like Instagram stories. Do you want to buy my soap dish? Like, I'm hoping to get into some shops soon and properly stock things, because I feel like once those steps kind of start taking off, then I can start quitting my other jobs and I can do more full-time ceramics, which would be the aim. Also, I like my little part-time jobs as well, so maybe I'd just do like one day. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now. It's just bits and bobs here and there, getting the time in when you can, I suppose. The generator as well is like a really big like emphasis for right now. Like, you only serve 2 years and you kind of want to make the most of it. So
yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, Generator Projects, it's an artist-run space where they will put on exhibitions of other artists, and so there's a bit of curation involved in that as well, Mim.
Yeah,
and
so we do all the programming and all the curation and all the financial stuff and applying for money. Well, I say I do it, Verna does it, and I'm learning how to do it.
Yeah. But it's quite, it's a lot of really different things, in terms of headspace. How many days do you think you're in the studio? Like,
like Mondays I work in the uni, Thursdays and Fridays I work in the vegetable shop, Friday nights I work in the cinema, Saturdays I work in the cinema sometimes as well. And then so usually like Tuesday and Wednesday is the days that I allot to be in the studio, but that's kind of my only days off, so you kind of had to sacrifice at some point of like, do I go swimming today or do I go to the studio? Like, that now you choose. Yeah, it would be nice to be there every day, but it's difficult having to shift your headspace, having to go, okay, I'm selling tomatoes now, then you're like, no, I'm making pottery, and then you're like, no, I'm scanning tickets for the opera, and then you're like, no, I'm teaching people at the uni. It's like you're all over the place,
Yeah.
It's good. I'd get bored if I was doing the same thing all the time.
Just one other thing, Mim, would you be, even in terms of when you're making, so you've got all these different things going on in your life, which is occupying, and then you come into the studio, and even if you say, okay, I've got 2 days in the studio, and you think, okay, one of them I might go swimming or have a day off, and then the other one, when you get in the studio, you've got potentially different directions to go in terms of what you make, so it could be like, okay, I'm going to make something that is for commercial sale, or I'm going to make something that might go down, like I would think with your degree show work or the stuff you were doing before, which was questioning that idea of, well, what is a pot, like you put on and it's a vessel,
tough, because you have to kind of sacrifice that kind of more philosophical side of things when you're just trying to do something full time as like a self-employed person, I don't think anyone's really going to pay me to sit around and think right now about stuff. But you do have to kind of shift the thoughts. And if I had a show coming up that was more of like a gallery presented show, I would probably be making different stuff in the studio. But since I want to be creative full time and make money doing that, then you kind of have to shift yourself. What is quite tough about it is ceramics doesn't really lend itself to large gaps of time. So if you go in and make something on a Tuesday and then something comes up and you have to go to work and you can't be there till Saturday, it'll be kind of ruined and you have to start again.
Yeah,
that's tough. That leads me to not really making anything.
Yeah. Has anyone else experienced that when they've, or like I'm thinking of you, Matthew, you're making your book balls. Is that what they're called? Yeah. And are you thinking of them for what context?
I'm not thinking of them for any context. I'm just making them play.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I found that sometimes having less time, now I've got a family and job and all that kind of stuff. I use my time far. I seem to make more than I did when I had all the time in the world at art school. There's something about just getting good at filling in every little tiny bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
So like I since lockdown, my day job is based at home. So I work I work at the university, but I work from home. So if I get a 20-minute tea break, I can have something in my studio that I do. So you just get very good at using tiny bits of time.
Being really resourceful with time.
Yeah. No, but it's interesting as well, even because it just get that sense. Like sometimes I go up to my daughter's room and she's just drawing, and I just realised she's just doing it for fun. And there was a time when I used to do that, I just make stuff just for pleasure, instead of going, why am I doing this? Oh, it's got to be for a reason. Yeah.
Jamie was she wasn't asking, saying words, which is kind of, I'd spoke about this. We had a little secret private view down at Nomas when the show opened and had some tinnies at the windows. And I was rambling, much like I rambled today, and was kind of talking about, the invisibility of the workers behind the Met Opera curtain, and the kind of invisible hustle that all artists have today, the side hustle. And then, just that's kind of another thought as well. Isn't fully formed yet, which, background machines, we're all just like having to kind of maintain our time and do background stuff so we can do our kind of foreground things, hidden labor in the arts, unseen and unpaid labor in the arts as well is like quite a nightmare, right? We need to get some ethical working practices up in this.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mim.
Well, thanks very much for listening.
Yeah, really appreciate it. But maybe we should just unmute for momentarily or to finish and thank Mim, make a big rowdy Zoom noise. Thank you very much, Mim.
Thank you, everyone.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.